and invite AVP Benton to take the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Vanita. Thank you, everyone. And I just came up to this very fluid. I don't have any agenda. I just, maybe I'll just say a couple words about what we've been doing here at Cal Maritime. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if I don't have the answers to your questions right now, certainly I think between Vanita and I, we can contact you with any information that we might have afterwards if there's something that that can't be answered in the next hour here. So first things first, my name is Graham Benton. I am the Associate Provost for Academic Affairs at Cal Maritime. I've been here probably longer than a number of other of my colleagues. I started out as an adjunct instructor in 2001, and so then moved into a tenure track line, became chair of the Department of Culture and Communication before moving into my current administrative role. And so what I do is I work closely with the deans of the 3 schools and with the provost to ensure the rigor and the quality of our academic programs. But that job sort of got put aside, or in addition to that, when the world went crazy about last February, and we had to respond to the COVID crisis. There was a number of different task forces that were set up, a number of different committees that were put into place. There was a little bit of juggling around before we thought that we had the proper organizational nexus for how to handle this. And so it fell on me to actually co-chair the Health and Safety Task Force, which meets about 5 to 8 hours a week, every week since last February. And we have been tasked with making sure that the campus health and safety is in alignment with our expectations for our instructional periods. And throughout this entire time, we have been guided, and you might have heard this in other meetings, or you might hear it from the president. We've been guided by 3 governing principles. Number 1 is the health and safety of our campus community. That includes our students, our staff, our faculty, and our visitors. Number 2 is the preservation of our educational mission as much as it can be, given principle number 1. And then, of course, principle number 3 is things change all the time, and we have to react to the external environment. And so maybe just a little background of what we've been doing. I don't know how much everyone realized that we went into a shelter in place in Vallejo, California last March. So the school was shut down, students were sent home, and that's when we began to look to see how we could possibly finish the spring term, because we had so many face-to-face courses that just couldn't possibly be done in an online format. And I'm not sure who all the parents are and what your children's majors are, but certainly would understand in marine transportation and a lot of engineering that there was just no way that we could teach these courses in an online or alternative modality. And so what we ultimately ended up doing is breaking the summer down into 3 different phases. Phase 1 was to return our graduating seniors to campus so that they could finish their coursework. And this was really important for us because a lot of them had jobs that they were waiting on. A lot of them just had just a few hours, contact hours, that were mandated by the US Coast Guard that were preventing them from graduating until they could get those hours in. And so we did bring those students back in the early summer, and we had a successful phase 1. Phase 2 was what we call dockside steaming, which is a variation on the summer sea term, the summer cruise that we have with the ship. And this was a little bit more complicated because we were bringing back a few more students, and we were also working with more enclosed spaces. A lot of these students needed to work on the bridge of the ship, and it's very tough to do some socially distancing from that particular space. But we brought back those students without incident as well. The third phase, which we're in right now, was to bring back all of our other undergraduates so that they could complete, I shouldn't say all of our undergraduates in certain programs, so that they could complete their spring term and advance into class. Because if they weren't able to finish those requirements, there would have been some bottlenecks in advancing into class from sophomores into juniors, juniors into seniors, and it would have really tied up some of our prereqs. And so that's the phase that we're in right now. We have a number of students in the dorms. We have a number of our faculty who are teaching as we speak. I'm looking out my window, watching them come in. And we are now turning full bore to the fall term. And for every subsequent phase that we've had a new health and safety plan. And so the one that is currently on our webpage is the plan that corresponds to phase 3. The health and safety plan for the fall, I'm hoping that that should be up no later than the end of this week, maybe early next week. Because not only do we have to make all of the revisions to it, but this has to be vetted and approved by the Academic Senate, by a number of the different unions on campus that have rights over the health and safety of the campus. It has to get approved by the President's Cabinet. It has to be approved by our student leadership, the triad. And then once the president signs off on it, then it'll get posted up to the website. So there are a couple things in that plan that will change for the fall, but if you want to look at the one that's up there for phase 3, that one should be about 80% similar. And it's not a small document, it's about 70 pages long. And so there's different bullet points too that, that we can pull out and discuss if necessary. So maybe that's enough of a sort of a background. The Health and Safety Task Force, as I said, is co-chaired by Danielle Pelzarski from the Commandant's Office. We do have our health center physician and our nurse who are big parts of that task force. We do consult with Solano County Health and receive a lot of information from them that has informed our plans. We follow CDC guidelines, OSHA guidelines. We have representatives from facilities for sanitation and hygiene purposes, how we've revamped our cleaning exercises on campus, how we've relooked at some of our instructional spaces, what we've done with the dining center. And so there's about, I think, 26 people on the task force right now. And maybe with that, I can stop talking and see if there's any questions that any of you might have for me, either about academics or about health and safety. And maybe just one more thing I'll say is that I do have a daughter who is going to be a sophomore in college, and I have a daughter who is a senior in high school. And so I recognize I think the sort of the emotional turmoil that a lot of us have gone through this summer, and trying to figure out what the plans are. And you know, one of the mantras that we had was like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall. And as soon as we thought we had something in place, maybe the external environment switches a little bit, and it's not quite where we expected it to be. And so we've had to pivot a few times throughout the summer in making this work. So. With that, I can pause and take any questions that you might have.
So parents will start putting their questions in chat, Graham. In the meantime, I would like to ask a question that was posed yesterday. Can you share something with us about the period after Thanksgiving and the end of the semester, the traditional end of the semester in mid-December? Is there an academic plan or some instruction for students and parents to understand what will happen during that time?
Sure, absolutely. So again, the bigger picture is that we have a number of instructional programs that will have 100% of their coursework online, and that's International Business and Logistics, Global Studies, Maritime Affairs, and Oceanography. There are other majors, including engineering technology, mechanical engineering, and marine transportation that will have some of their courses in a face-to-face format. And so we had to get permission from the Chancellor's office to engage with these face-to-face courses. And while the majority of our classes are online, as it is across the system, we do have those face-to-face classes, as do a lot of the other CSUs in the system. But what we wanted to do was to front load those courses so that we could be sure that we could get as much of the face-to-face in as we could under the circumstances that we are currently in, knowing, as I said, that there is that principle number 3, things are liable to change. And if we do have to go to another shelter in place, or if we do get word from the governor or from Solano County Health that we have to pivot again, it was our intention to get as much of those U.S. Coast Guard regulations in before Thanksgiving as we could, so that students would not have any face-to-face instruction after, let's see, I don't have my calendar open, but after that Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving. There will be online components after that, so students would still be taking classes online, either in a synchronous or an asynchronous format, but the intention was to complete all of the face-to-face requirements before Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for that clarification. The first question is from Bernadette, and she's asking, on the website, there was a form to fill out for COVID testing. However, the form does not ask for the cadet's name, so how do they sign up for a test slot?
Good question, Bernadette. And let me ask if Vanita can help you follow up with that. That will probably be an email that is sent out from housing, because they're going to be the ones that will have the military grade precision plan for students, at what forms they need when they come, what slots they're going to have as they get tested, what sort of authorization forms they will need to have. And I'm not privy to the details of that plan, but I do know that they wanted to space it out so we don't get everybody in their cars jammed up at one particular place. And so I would just say, stay tuned for that message and that it will be out. But I'm going to take a note that there's no place for the student's name on that form.
The next question is from Melanie. Has there been any COVID spread on campus during summer for students or faculty?
Good question. And we have always been forthright with our health and safety plan and been very transparent with what has happened on campus. And I think we have been very good, and we've had very low numbers of COVID. We had one case of a staff member who had no contact with students and wasn't even on campus throughout the summer, but had to have some elective surgery. And as a result of that, she had a COVID test that was positive. We had one faculty member who was returning and following protocol and was tested and then isolated. And ultimately that was determined to be a positive test. And so he was removed from the instructional program and never actually stepped foot on campus. There was the last case was a worker in the dining center who had no contact with students nor with food preparation. It was an administrator. And that person had exhibited symptoms and went to their private doctor. For every case, we put an announcement out to the campus community, and they're using or see some email. And this is also posted on the COVID webpage. And so throughout the summer, I guess the short answer to that question is, out of the hundreds of people that we've had here, we've had 3 cases since March. I think you're on mute still, Vanita.
All right, my apologies. Thank you, Graham. The next question is from Julie. Will they be moved out before Thanksgiving too? So I suspect Julie's asking about students getting moved out when they leave from face-to-face.
I think that in general, the plan, and again, I would like to huddle with our housing personnel, is that these students would go home and then they would remain at home over the holidays, the Christmas break, and then return in January. And of course, we are 100% focused right now on the fall term. You know, we've sort of mapped out what I think the spring is going to look like, but that situation is much more fluid. But yes, their intention now is for those students to be done, and then they could go home and then return in January. We always have some students, a handful that can't make it home, don't have a place to go, and we'll work with them if there's housing that they would need through the end of Thanksgiving and December.
Thank you. That also answers Melanie's question. The next question is, if we drop our student to move in on August 13, can they leave campus on the weekends?
The answer to that question is, once they're dropped off on the 13th, they will be tested. They'll be in isolation. They won't be allowed to engage in any instruction until they have their test results. And I'm not sure if somebody else explained that you're able to get your son or daughter tested outside of our testing facility if you so desire. But if they do get tested here, it's generally around a 24-hour to 48-hour turnaround. After that, there's going to be a number of orientations, safety and health orientations that they will have to go through and understand our mask policy on campus. And then after that, we don't have a completely closed, locked down campus. And that was a discussion that we've had numerous times with our healthcare professionals, with the police, with students, and with faculty. So our faculty are allowed to go home at night. Our staff go home at night. Our students go back to the dormitories. But we're not going to prevent them from going to the pharmacy if they need to pick up medicine. If they need to go to the store for something, they'll be able to do that. And if they do want to leave on the weekends, I think that's something that we're going to review in this final health and safety plan. But we would expect our students to, practice health and safety protocol when they're gone, but I still think that would be allowed.
Thank you. The next question is from Bernadette. So there will be face-to-face classes on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Do they need to move out completely then? Bernadette, if I may, let's save that for Friday when we have the residential staff, and I think you'll get the best answers from Melinda on Friday related to move out and how the residential life is going to work. Is that okay, Graham? Is that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So next question is from Jerusha. He says, my son was COVID tested today and will receive results prior to move in on August 13. Will this test result be valid?
I would say yes, Jerusha. The way that we're dealing it with the students is that if they are getting tested separately from our testing facility, that we would just want the results of that test to be sent. If it's a student, it goes to the health center for HIPAA reasons. If it's faculty or staff, those go to HR. And so all they would need to do is to have the date of the test that falls within our parameters, and then make sure that the result is negative.
Thank you. The next question, oops. Is there a COVID-19 testing program on campus for regular testing of students and staff? From Lisa.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lisa. And this is something that we spent a lot of time on in the Health and Safety Task Force, and reading a lot of literature and talking with our doctors and talking with the nurses and talking with the hospitals here in town. And the issue with the testing, and I think everyone understands what is at stake with the test, is it gives you a snapshot in time of that particular moment. And so it is useful to collect some data, but you know, if somebody gets a test and then they go to Safeway and then they come back, you know, there's that doesn't guarantee that someone's not carrying the virus with them. And so out of a bounty of caution, we tested a number of people throughout the summer as they were coming in for the different instructional phases. And I think I'm having my 5th test, I think next week. So we do have, I would say, regular testing at the beginning of each phase. And then what we're going to be doing is probably looking to target different specific communities. So if we have some students who might have to work a bit more closely together in some instructional space, we might look to see them about additional testing. Certainly if somebody exhibits symptoms and they contact the health center, then we'd follow the advice of the health center people and see what they say. So one example maybe I can share, we had a student who has suffered from severe migraines and went to the hospital yesterday. Not COVID related, but we're going to test him again because this was someone who entered into a high risk area. And so we will make those cases on an individual basis as well.
Thank you. Nancy's asking a similar question. So Nancy, if your student is getting tested today, that should be fine, as Graham mentioned. Bernadette is asking, are visitors allowed on campus? Will food deliveries be announced? Is that
Sure.
fine?
Let me go back to Nancy's question first. Okay. I see that some people are having their COVID tests done now, and that's great, and planning ahead. One thing that I would caution is that there's, depending on where you are, some of these have taken a long time to get back to us. And so I just wanted to sort of put that out there, that we had some students who were very frustrated that said, I'm just going to get tested in LA, or I'm going to get tested in Vallejo. And they said it was a 48-hour turnaround, and it ended up being like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So I think we're still safely within that window, but I just wanted to put that out there, that sometimes has happened to us. Now, in terms of Bernadette's question about visitors allowed on campus, no, we don't. The campus will be limited to essential employees, and those employees have been identified, and a master list of that is held with the president's cabinet and with the respective vice presidents. It's not an insignificant list of essential employees, as you can imagine, for a campus university, because we still have to maintain our janitors and our facilities and our cooks and our faculty and a number others of us who cannot work remotely. But those who can work remotely were instructed to do so. And so visitors will not be allowed on campus. There are exceptions to the rules. These have to be made with the authority of a vice president. And it's generally somebody saying, I was told I can work from home. I just need to pick up a fax from my machine in my office. Can I come in on a Saturday to get it? Those are the sorts of exceptions that we're thinking about. In terms of food deliveries, there is a protocol that we have in place right now for food deliveries, and I believe that will be maintained for the fall. I don't know these things as well because I don't do them, but there's, what is it, dine and dash? No, that's something bad. Drop-off dining or something. And we do have a space for that. So it's in front of the police center. So if students do order food, there is a pickup place. No, we don't do dine and dash, right? That's something else.
DoorDash is what you were thinking of.
DoorDash, yes.
DoorDash. Okay, so next question is from Shelley. Will the gym be open for recreational use?
It's a really good question, Shelley, and it's one that we'll be talking about as soon as I'm off of this meeting, and something that we talked about yesterday. So it's not as easy as saying yes or no. Generally, the gym, they offer classes like weight training classes, yoga classes, dance classes, but we were instructed by the chancellor's office that only those face-to-face required classes could be offered, and so we're not allowed to offer those. But we are really looking into the physical well-being of our students, not just their mental and intellectual well-being. And it's really important for our new athletic director and our student affairs personnel that students have access to physical activity. And so I'm just now reviewing the PIAC COVID plan with our physician and nurse to see how viable this is. And I would like to say that the gym would be open with a lot of strict rules in place. We're also looking at Bodner Field, using the soccer, the rugby field for more socially distanced physical education. We can put the yoga classes and the mindful meditation classes online. So I guess the answer to that is please stay tuned. I think there will be some role for the gym. We are just trying to make sure that we've got it all figured out before we roll it out.
Thank you. Bernadette is making a comment that she thought outside external COVID testing results had to be within 6 days of move-in.
Yeah, and so we are now more than 6 days away from move-in. This is what we had in phase 3. This is what had been in the messaging. We are aware, however, that the longer turnaround for COVID tests might prevent students from actually being able to come here in time. And so I think maybe through Vanita, can I send something back, a clarifying note about the exact number of days that we would allow a COVID test to occur? Because I want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking for those of you who had a test yesterday or a test tomorrow.
Certainly, we'll follow up on this after the call. Thank you. Lisa says, I'm concerned about room assignments on the Golden Bear as the virus seems to transmit very easily in confined spaces like ships. Are different sanitization and ventilation procedures in place for shipboard residents?
Yes, they are. We have a different entire sanitizing protocol for the ship. And again, I would maybe defer to our housing staff in so much that I'm not exactly sure how many students are being housed on the ship in the fall. I don't think the incoming freshmen are, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I know lower berthing is not being used for the fall term, but certainly we do have different protocols put into place for the ship. And it is an ocean-going vessel, so yes, the ventilation is different than what you would find in offices, but We do have different ingress and egress, trying to prevent people from coming up and down different gangways at different times. And as much as possible, we've moved the classes off of the ship, and those would be put into our classrooms.
Thank you. Graham, students will be staying on the ship this
They will.
semester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to Lisa for just a second. Lisa, we'll hold this question to be asked again of Melinda on Friday. I will also get in touch with her to see if she can provide any information in the meantime that I can share back with the group. Julie is asking, yes, regarding food delivery, my son's move-in time on August 13 is 10 a.m. Should we pack a lunch? Will he be provided dinner? I'll let you off the hook on that one, Graham.
Yeah.
Julie, again, very good question. We'll have those answers for you on Friday. We'll definitely be providing meals to your student when they move in on August 13. I know that we're preparing some very basic snacks for parents so that while they're there moving, they're doing whatever they need to do to tide them over. But I wouldn't worry at all about the student that you're dropping off on the 13th. If you still want to pack one last lunch for your child, go ahead. Moving to Bernadette, she's just correcting something. Jerusha says, would they return to their assigned dorm in January? Meaning, do they need to move everything out before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, and that is a good question. And again, I would defer to housing and to make sure that they understand that these are some of the concerns. I think we're not sure what the spring semester will hold yet in terms of our face-to-face programming. And so I'm sorry that I can't give you a determination if they can leave all of their material in. I would think that that would be fine. But I want to make sure that we run this by our housing folks. So just to make sure. One of the problems that we had, and it's maybe unrelated, was when we went to the shelter in place last February, March, and all of the students went home, they left everything here. And then we were sort of at a very critical point during the pandemic where we had to figure out how do these students come back just to get their material. And if they lived in the Bay Area, it wasn't a huge deal, but for our students from Alaska and Hawaii, Southern California, for how were they able to get their belongings was a bit of a more challenge. And so I think as we move closer into September and October, we might have a better sense of our timing in the pandemic and whether students can leave their stuff in the dorms to start up again in January or not. But I would like to defer until I can consult with our housing folks on that.
Typically what happens is students switch spaces between the ship and a res hall at the end of the semester. So they have to pack up and pack up their room on the ship if they're living on the ship, because the following spring semester they're in the dormitory. So that needs to occur anyways. But again, let's hold off on that for Friday. Nancy's asking, just to clarify, the face-to-face classes for this semester will be completed by Thanksgiving.
Yes. And the revised academic calendar is on the registrar's webpage. If you just type in the registrar, and then you'll see the academic calendars on the left-hand side, and that will have all of the important dates and the revised dates for face-to-face instruction as well.
Thank you. Jennifer is asking, perhaps this was part of the health forms already submitted, but my cadet is a minor until 8/31. Did I already sign a blanket consent form for testing?
That's a very specific question that I might have to consult with HR about. We might need a follow-up on that one, Vanita. I don't know.
Okay.
if the student is a minor until 8/31, what the protocol is with the parental signature for that test would be.
I'm going to put my email address, Jennifer, in the chat. So if you could shoot me an email with your specific question, this one, that'd be great, and I'll follow up with you. I'm reading through some of the comments. Julie says, my son has been assigned to the ship as well. He is an ME freshman. So yes, they're living on the ship.
Okay.
Nancy says, will the school be conducting regular temperature checks on students?
Yes, and again, that is a health and safety protocol that we've been discussing. Throughout the summer, we have hired a company that are doing the temperature checks as students and faculty and staff come in, and we all get these little bands that we wear to identify ourselves. As we scale up for the fall, and as we read the changes that are being issued to us from CDC and from the Department of Higher Ed, we are moving towards a self-monitoring system. And it'll most likely be an app on the phone, which students will have to check in every day answering 3 questions, whether they've come into contact with anyone with COVID, whether they are exhibiting any of the symptoms related to COVID, and whether their temperature is under 100.4 degrees. Along with this, we're looking to purchase thermometers for all students so that this could be more accomplished. And I do know that this shifts the accountability onto the students a little bit more, but it also, I think, is useful for the governance of the campus and allowing those students to check in. And if we plan this right, then the faculty can also see the students and see that they're doing their health screenings before they come into class. And so that's one of the programs that we're trying to develop in the next 4 or 5 days here.
Graham, just curious, would you recommend that if possible, students could bring a thermometer with them just to be sure? Is that a good recommendation for parents?
That's a great recommendation. Yes, that's wonderful. And, you know, I'm already going through, I know as soon as I buy 500 thermometers, there's going to be 20 that get lost within the first day, I would imagine. So the more thermometers we have, the better.
All right. Well, thank you. So next question is from Bernadette. Have students already received housing assignments and move-in times? I don't think my son has received that yet. Bernadette, I know the communication for the slot for arrival, time slot for arrival, and the room assignment communication did go out. I want to say it was on Monday. And if your student has not received it, please have him send an email to housing@csum.edu, which is now in the chat, and find out what's going on. Again, as always, we want, as parents and as educators on a campus, to advocate, have students advocate for themselves. Have him reach out to housing. Is there a specific type of COVID test that is required? Aaron wants to know.
No, there isn't. And I know that there are a variety of tests. And then when we were doing our research with the labs and the companies that are administering the test, we went with the swab test, which is both nostrils and the mouth. We have a company that administers them on campus, and they're then processed by a different company, a laboratory down on the peninsula. I understand that there are different tests that are out there, and we have made no distinctions as to we will accept this text but not that test. So given the variety of tests that are out there. There's not a specific one that we recommend or require.
Thank you, Graham. I'm going to ask a question. If a parent or a student has had their testing done, but when they arrive on the 13th, at that moment, they've not yet received their results. And they, in anticipation of getting that result, they didn't fill out the form. Can a student get their testing done on the fly because they somehow didn't get their results in time?
I'm going to say yes. We'll make that happen.
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think because what we don't want to have happen is a student says, I got tested a week ago, I'm still waiting. And we say, fine, move into your dorm. You have to go into isolation until we get your results. There's a lost, there's a lost test. They get a backlog at the lab. It takes another week. And your poor child is left in isolation in a room. We want to make sure that you either have your results in hand when you come to campus, would be the best thing. I would not recommend rolling the dice to come on the 13th without your results and not get tested on the 13th, thinking that they would come on the 14th or the 15th.
So just to alleviate any stress on parents, if you were expecting results but somehow didn't get them, it's okay. We'll accommodate on the fly testing if necessary on the 13th. Not ideal, but we'll work with it. Okay.
Making notes.
Next question is from Nancy. How often are classrooms and labs being cleaned and sanitized?
We have different protocols put into place. First, we're not using some of our classrooms, obviously, and we're concentrating our cleaning staff on the others. For every classroom, there is cleaning supplies that are put into the classroom. We have, over the summer, we've had a kind of mantra, clean at hello, clean at goodbye. And this is where the faculty and the students actually come in, and if it's they're working at their workstations, they'll wipe it down before they even begin work. And then they'll wipe it again when they leave before the next students would come in. But besides that, we do have our staff that go in that clean nightly. We've shifted a lot of their schedules around. So, one of the things that we learned over the summer is that someone's saying, I'm not seeing any of the janitors. And that's because they're now working 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that they can be completely out of the way of our instructional staff and our students. And there's, trying to remember, on each of the classrooms, there's little contact sheets that say when the facility has been cleaned, who to call if there's not any cleaning equipment or supplies in the room. Text number, I think, is what we're trying to get put into every classroom now. So a faculty member can just text and have those supplies delivered on the fly. And that's something that we're working on.
So the next statement or advice is from Lisa, who's a physician. She says, the COVID-19 test should be for potential current infection, usually a PCR test, not an antibody test. Antibody tests provide information about past infection, not current infection status. So thank you, Lisa, for that information. It's helpful to know the distinction between the two. Graham, you must have covered everything parents needed to know because there are no additional questions flowing in. It's 10:49, and as we did yesterday, if someone didn't get a chance to type in their question and would like to unmute their device and ask the question verbally, now's the time to do it. We invite parents to reach out now verbally if they'd like.
And I also put my email in the chat as well. So if people have any specific questions that they think of later, I know that's usually what happens to me. Feel free to email me, and if I have the answer, I'll get back to you. And I've also been taking just a couple notes here that I need to circle back with Vanita that I can share information with.
Not to bombard you with all sorts of email addresses, but another way to get in touch with the orientation team is to reach out to us at orientation@csum.edu. I have a question from Jerusa. Will the content tomorrow be similar, meaning should we try to attend each day? Yes, please try to attend each day if your schedule allows. Tomorrow we're going to talk. Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be a delivery of some kind. My apologies. Tomorrow is about student health and well-being, not directly related to COVID. We're going to talk more generally. Please excuse me 1 second. What would we do without Amazon? I apologize. I am so sorry. So tomorrow's content is expected to be a little bit different. It's going to be about student well-being and how do we work with students who might feel stressed or mental health questions and such. So it will not be as focused on COVID and our planning to keep the facilities and the campus safe from the pandemic, during the pandemic, more general. I think those are all our questions. And is anyone chiming in? All right. I'd like to thank AVP Benton, Graham Benton, for being with us today. Thank you so much. Round of applause for him with all the information. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all. And like I said, if people have any other additional questions, I would check out the COVID page that we're trying to keep updated. And anything else, feel free to give me a call or an email. And best of luck to you all. So thanks, Vanita. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Graham, if you wish to log out, that's great. If any parent wants to stay for the next 8 minutes or even longer and have other questions that I could be helpful with, I'll stay online for a little bit longer and take those questions. Thank you again, Graham.
All right. Thank you. I'll go to my other one. Bye-bye.
Bye. Anyone have any other questions that are pressing about orientation, in person, what to expect on the 13th? All right, looks like we're all set. I will see you again tomorrow at 10. By the end of this week, you'll be so tired of my face and my voice. We'll see you tomorrow at 10. Please use the same link as you did today. And then on Friday, we will be meeting with Melinda, who is our residential life coordinator. And she, for that one, it's a different link. So please make sure you look at the links for each day and use the one appropriate for that day. Thank you so much again. And you have my email and my phone number if you need to reach out to me. Have a great afternoon.